So, Dana White announced the two fights for Mexico City. So, Moreno versus Albazi. Apparently, that's going to be the main event. And Rodriguez versus Ortega 2 is the co-main, which I'm shocked about. I actually thought that Yair versus Ortega was going to be the main event because it's a bigger weight class, featherweight. And I thought the smaller weight class would co-headline. Um, Unsure why the UFC made that decision. Maybe it's because Ortega hasn't competed in a while. But I don't know. I mean, Moreno's coming off a loss. Ortega and Yair are coming off losses, so I can't really use that logic. But I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on this rematch between Rodriguez and Ortega. Still going to be 5 rounds, regardless of it being a co-main, which I do think this matchup is definitely 5 round worthy because it's a Mexican on Mexican matchup, which when you put two Mexicans together, it has war written all over it. But where has Brian Ortega been after all this time out? Finally, this dude's came out of hiding. Finally, this guy's came out of his hiatus. He's done nothing since getting his shoulder popped by Yair Rodriguez. Yair has literally fought 2 times since. He went on to do what Ortega couldn't, win a belt. I know it was interim, but still became a UFC champ, beat Josh Emmett. And then I know he lost to Volkanovski, but so did Brian Ortega. They're both sons of Alexander Volkanovski. No shame in that. Volk beats all except Ilya in February, but we'll talk about that later. And he also doesn't beat Makachev. We already know that. But yeah, this rematch. I don't know how I feel about this, man, because back in the day in 2022, my pick was Brian to win the fight because I thought he's got the advantage with his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, his ground game. And that has been kind of a weakness in Yair's game. Take down the fence, ground game, and I thought, man, Brian can exploit that, take the fight to the ground, win that way, maybe sub him. But Yair has proven that his ground game has evolved. His style has evolved. He's not just a striker anymore. The guy can fight off his back. His takedown defense has improved. Now, I get it. Volkanovski had his way with him in the wrestling department and crushed him on the ground. But Volkanovski's a completely different level of fighter from other guys Yair has fought. And a way better wrestler than Brian Ortega. I don't know if Brian coming back with the same approach, which he will do. He has no other way of beating Yair. He really has no choice. I don't really see that game plan flying by of trying to get the matchup to the ground with his average wrestling ability. I think Yair should be able to stop the takedowns. And I think Yair's striking is still going to be better. And Yair was piecing his ass up before the fight went to the ground and before Ortega popped his shoulder. But there's a reason why Ortega's shoulder popped. That's because Yair Rodriguez had him in a tight armbar. And Ortega was trying to pull his arm out. And unfortunately, it came out the wrong way. And he popped his shoulder, Bad luck in the draw. So Yair, on a technicality, accidentally subbed Brian Ortega. Now, will that occur again? I don't think so. I won't pick him to sub Ortega, but I do think that Yair is going to win this fight, man. He's been the more active fighter. He's the better fighter. I think Brian Ortega, I think the ring rust is going to be a factor in this matchup. His timing's going to be off. He's going to be even worse than he's going to look even worse than he did when they first fought. And I just see Brian Ortega getting lit up. Now, this fight will definitely go past a round. Ortega, because he's a zombie, he's tough. He will take some shots. He might give some shots. He might, in moments, get this fight on the ground, but I don't see him submitting Yair Rodriguez. Yair's going to be uber prepared for the ground fighting. His jiu-jitsu is very underrated, and I see him handling himself well on the ground. He's not getting subbed by Brian unless he gets badly rocked or something, but I don't even see Brian rocking him. It's just not going to end well, man. I think we're kind of now heading into a phase of Ortega's decline and his downfall. Now, some of you might argue Ortega was always overrated, never that good to begin with. I do think Ortega was good and very good, in fact. But I just think the guy, he hasn't evolved in his style and he fights so infrequently. And I think that's going to hurt him. He's taken more damage throughout his career than Yair. He took a worse beating against Max Holloway than Yair. Uh, Arguably took a worse beating than Yair against Volk. Although Volk smashed Yair pretty good, at least that fight went by a lot faster. Ortega's fight against Volk arguably should have been stopped in the third. It went longer than it needed to, so Brian lost more brain cells. And as a result, I don't think we're going to see the same Brian who outclassed the Korean Zombie. And I think he's going to show up, take a whooping, and I think Yair is going to win a pretty comfortable decision in this matchup. Probably 49-46. I could see Brian, to be generous, pulling off one round with a good takedown, but I really think he's going to struggle to get off anything effective on the feet and close the distance to work his takedowns. It's just not a good matchup, man. I just think Yair, even though he got smashed by Volk, I think he's evolving more at a rapid pace, and I think he is peaking. He's getting up there in his prime, whereas Ortega could be kind of sinking a bit early, but we'll see. I don't want to see this fight, honestly, because I don't want either guy to lose. I like both. I don't want to see Ortega lose 2 in a row to the same man. If he loses this fight, he's done, and unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. And if Yair wins, I mean, what do you do with him? He could probably fight the winner of Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. That's all I could think of right now. He already fought Max Holloway and lost. I mean, maybe if Ilya were to lose to Volkanovski, he could fight him. Maybe if Ilya wins and there's not an immediate rematch or Max doesn't get a shot, Yair could earn himself another shot at the belt. Who knows? We're just going to have to find out. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.